But again, there's a political story, and I'm not sure I should be saying it, but let me say it nonetheless. If you look at the graphs, in the first 10 years of democracy, people had high rating for democracy, which meant they felt the substance of a democracy. The substantive value of a democracy was felt. They could see, if you are like me, you grew up in Soweto, you could see there's a park, there's streets are now all tarred, and those type of things. There's visual change. There's a transactional value to my vote. And as the state capacity for redress weakens, those who were born much later, who've never experienced that difference, have no frame of reference to say it was like this. I see progress. So they don't see any change. And so we must not be surprised when their participation rate is not like that. I'm trying to take a survey in this room before I preface this slide. The pink color represents female on the voters roll, 55%. Female are the majority on the voters roll. It doesn't end there. They are the majority of staff at our voting stations. They are majority of presiding officers. It doesn't end there. They are the majority of voters at voting stations. And if you remove parties with liberation heritage, the National Assembly would almost exclusively be all male. Because we have a PR electoral system, parties can determine their lists, and especially parties that come from the heritage struggle credentials. They have meaningfully contributed to the diversity and representation of females in the National Assembly. However, as the margins for those parties decrease, we see a corresponding decrease in the representation of females in those national in those assemblies. Sadly, I think globally and even here, first past the post elections, women do not do very well in those elections. What do we mean? Go look at ward councillors in the country. The majority are males. And because it's a challenge that can't be resolved, some countries on the continent have tried to reserve certain number of seats for female representation. But the answer do not lie in that redress. The answer lies in understanding what militates against female participation. Let me sound controversial. This was told to me, it's not my experience. It was told to me by a oldish lady. She says, no, we'll go, even in our Stockfells, we'll go there, we can be a Stockfell of 10 people, and the only male there will be the chairperson. You can go to a Stockfell of all males, and there's one female, the only female will be the secretary in that Stockfell. So there is ingrained learned behavior that we must do. But the quality of representation is not about tokenism, it's about the quality of leadership. Let's take Trump's America now. They can do things because there is no diversity of views and opinion and life experiences in that administration. That's why they can do the most racist of things and see nothing wrong. Whereas if you have diversity and different perspectives, it forces you to reflect. It forces you to unlearn the things that you believed to be true. The number of seats in municipal councils will increase, not a lot, about 20 or 20, not more than 25 new wards will be in play in this election. The majority of the new wards will be in KZN. The MDB has finalized its work and handed over their wards to us, except for 4 municipalities in KZN where they are still in court cases. We are in a process of reviewing those ward maps, because if you change the ward boundary, it invariably impacts on the voting district boundaries. So we are reviewing those to make sure that every VD locates within the ward. SG, could I ask that in all municipalities, there's consistent representation of the PAC? Because otherwise, you're going to see the choices that are being made now for the first time when you go to a registration weekend and say, why did you choose this voting station and not that other voting station? Why did you draw the boundary of this VD in this main road, and why did you not use the river as a natural thing? So we sit with all political parties at the municipal level, look at all the maps, scratch, draw, agree, disagree, and once we agreed, parties sign off to indicate that they were consulted in that process. It is very key because at the point where you raise them during election, the bus has left the station. We can't do much with that. The next slide just speaks to, it's just to share information that for registration weekends, we have the materials in hand, or we will have them in hand before the end of March, and we've begun procurement for voting materials, including security materials. So from security provisioning, there are no risks to talk about. The voting station network we will finalize before the end of May in preparation for the registration weekend. This slide, I'll pause it for 2 minutes on this one. In 2024, we had challenges as an electoral commission, and we own up to those. We're not proud of those, but we own up to those. One was long queues in certain social settings. Two was the failure of technology. We have a VMD, which is a tablet. We bought those things, and in-house we developed the applications that run on that VMD. On election day, we ran 5 such applications. So we had an issue with one application, which is the Voters Roll app. What the Voters Roll app does is when you get to a station, we scan your ID, it confirms that you are registered at the station, it tells the presiding officer this is the number of ballot that this person gets, and once a presiding officer presses ballot issued, it records you as having voted, it updates our central database so that if you leave the result center in Centurion, you go vote in Sebokeng. And on your way back, you want to go vote in Meyersdal. The system will tell you this ID number has already participated in this election. We had a problem with that app, which the issue was a coding error. Instead of sending one message to the database, it repeated the same message multiple times. And if the same message is repeated on 33 gadgets, it clogged up our bandwidth and it slowed down the response. And because we have placed the decision making on the app, presiding officers that are younger, that have never run a voting station without using a VMD, struggled with reverting back to the hard copy voters roll. We have fixed the bug on that app, and those apps will be externally validated in the month of March by external resources. What we wish to ask President and SG, the result system on which we do seat calculation and allocation of results, it is not bought off the shelf. It was not bought from Israel. It is a thing that we developed in-house over a number of elections to do one thing, to say we may not agree on the result of an election, but we give parties an opportunity to say, we explain the results from each voting district. So we just don't give you a global figure to say these are the results. We can go back and say, here are the results at this voting station. Agree or disagree with them. And people will post things on social media as if they had to go dig those things up. No, those things are provided to political parties, to contested by the Electoral Commission specifically to do those things. To say, if you know that at your voting station, the PAC got 500 votes and the Commission has captured 300 votes for the PAC, you can raise an objection, we'll investigate and correct the result. So those things are purposefully built. We believe then that we are saints, but we still build systems for sinners so that people can have a level of comfort with the results that are released. Ahead of an election, we invite all political parties to send in their experts to come audit the result system, to check whether on voting day in the IEC 1 + 1 is still 2. And if it's still 2, it is still 2 for all parties and not for some. So that when a PAC gets 2 votes, it must be recorded as 2 and not 1. So parties are invited to do that. I know, SG, you've never taken advantage of that thing. Please come, raise issues, and once you've raised those issues, we'll give you reports once you've done the system. And after parties have reviewed the system, we also subject it to external auditors for validation, for fitness. The party doesn't exist, so the seats that you had are taken away and they are shared among the other parties in that assembly. The court can issue fines, they can authorize that we subtract votes for that party in a voting station or municipality or in a ward.